Hello, everybody, and today is another special day because today I have a very, very special guest. I have a writer, a director, and also the star of the new film Scare Me, which is going to be releasing October 1st exclusively on Shudder, a part of the 61 Days of Halloween event, and he's no other than Josh Ruben. Josh, how is it going today?
Oh, it's great. Thank you so much for having me, Najee. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Now, first of all, again, congratulations. It's been, a year of where everyone went on timeout. But you clearly haven't because, having this film part of the Sundance 2020 official selection, you did some voice acting work. You got two other projects coming down the pipeline. And then ultimately, the release of Scare Me on Shudder as your feature directing debut.
Yeah.
How does it all feel?
I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound so ungrateful and so privileged, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I think it's a little silly. It kind of feels like all my dreams came true, but there's just a little bit of poop on it. It's like, oh, here you go. You got your wish. You got everything about you. You get to make a movie. There's just a little bit of poop on it, just a little bit of poo poo. You know what I mean? Like it's because I want to be. We would have had a run at the Alamo, and I would have been able to invite my mom and my dad.
I think you just.
There I go.
I was gonna say I thought your audio cut out. Go ahead. So you said your mom and your dad.
Yeah, I mean, just like all these all these incredible, horror fans and filmmakers, and I haven't met any of the Shudder. I met a couple of Shudder folks in person in Sundance, so I'm so grateful. And March 9th, I wrapped my second feature film with Sam Richardson and Michaela Watkins and this incredible cast for a movie called Werewolves Within. But then we were locked down a few days later, so I did the whole thing in post. Very, very grateful, but it feels very weird. Obviously, there's far, far, far worse happening in the world, and I'm very, very grateful for where I'm at. But I'm upset that I don't get to do this with people in the room.
I understand. Talking to other filmmakers, I mean, the first thing they say is so selfish. They say, "I want to experience this with the fans at a film festival." Everything they did, no matter how broke they went, how many credit cards they ran up, they say that one moment of just being in the crowd, seeing that reaction from the fans is just something they all miss. So, that's why I totally try to do my job in making sure that, people go and dig deep for these films that they may not have heard of because of the film festival absence. And like Scare Me is absolutely one to be talking about because again, Shudder has been doing an amazing job with the releases of their film. And, talking to Sean, who's the PR rep for them, he told me he had something special, and I really trust his word. And this was absolutely it delivered. And there's so much I want to talk about with this too, because I think, like, I said in my review, it takes a certain special individual to pull off a film like this. And before I actually get into that, the character Fred, who you star as in the film, he is a ambitious writer, kind of in a funk. And I just want to know, how do you or have you ever experienced that initial part of the film where he's just trying to, isolate himself to really get the brain juices flowing? Like, have you ever been through a process like that?
I feel like every time any writer who really does the thing sits down, they realize part of the process is like, I'm going to go write for 6 hours. 5 hours of that is getting geared up to do the thing. So when I do it, it's usually like talking myself up or into it, or even procrastinating can be a bit of a piece of it. It's almost like part of the meditation of it. And then you get 1 or 2 good hours in flow out of it. So yes, when I'm really doing it, I need to be downstairs. I live in a one bedroom with my fiance, and there's only so much room. But so these days, when you can't go to the coffee shop, I'm like, well, I guess I'll go in the closet or go in the bedroom and shut the door. Thank God there's a door. But yeah, I think when I've really done the thing, I've isolated. Even if isolating is putting in the headphones, but I think it remains to be seen what people think. I think he was using the writing as an excuse and running from something else.
Yeah, that is exactly what I want to go into next. So Fred obviously is the character that you are, and Fanny, who is played by the great Aya Cash. I mean, that's amazing. And again, I'll talk about it in a quick second, but much like you said, their imagination demons really kind of manifest as the progression of this story goes along. But when did you know you were going to be Fred, and then when did you know you was going to get I in this? Or when did you know you was going to get her on board? And like, did you have any clue how magical this was going to work out?
I had no clue how magical it was going to work out. I knew that I would be Fred and I would direct it because it was cheap. And I knew that if, I couldn't go to Ryan Reynolds because he'd cost a lot more, or, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't get someone who would cost anything to be in this. And also I knew I wrote this thing to my strengths as a director or a good writer, should, or if they're not, it's like, okay, I'm going to write a thing knowing that I've made silly voices and funny faces since I was a kid, and I do specific things, and I'm making movies for specific things. And I needed an actress to spar with and off of, and a cast to do that. Yeah, and Aya, who came from theater, the B, who was coming off of a TV series and didn't want to do stuff, and where she was sexualized or in a bathing suit or wanted to be having an acting challenge. And she always laughs and is like, I meant an acting challenge, like a period piece, not like barking like a dog and doing a Crypt Keeper impression. But I'm so glad that she did, because she was, we had a very short list. I mean, there's only so many people, that might be willing to do something for a first-time filmmaker, and Aya was down. I've known her and of her for many years. We have mutual friends. I'm friends with her husband, and we shot in the town near to where she lives. Nice. So it worked out. I'm so glad it did. She's incredible. She's incredible.
Yeah. I can't stress enough, like this cast. It's only a handful of you all that's part of this, but it truly takes a special dynamic to carry this type of film for a little over an hour and a half. And I just, I guess it was the match made in heaven that I didn't know I seen coming. Like it was so amazing and so magical. I think the big thing for me, much like you said, is like films like this it's a little bit unconventional, because it is a lot of talking that goes onto it. And I know you kind of question, like, would fans gravitate to us? And I'm here to think that fans will, because all of us came from this. I mean, you all used to camp around with your friends and say, I want to grow up to be this, and you dreaming out to be whatever way you think it's going to be, and it never ends up being that way. And some of that, to be honest, it did breed egos then, and it breeded little bullies and so on. So like, to the 10th degree is what this film goes into. But I think there's a little bit of us that we all can find resonate within these characters. So like, without a doubt, within like the first 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm interested. Like, I want to sit by the fire now. Like, I feel like I'm part of this. Like, it's special. But as much as I'm talking about the comedic side of this, now, one thing I really noted throughout watching the film is I really could not read Fred's intentions. And reading the press release about this, it puts so much into perspective. So I'm going to try to feed some of that out of you. So I know that you wrote this script during the height of the Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. And again, it does take a very special filmmaker to take on a serious subject as gender politics, because not only that, you're addressing that through horror and comedy. And that's something that just hasn't been done. So how did you really navigate through this creative process to make sure that you got the film done, but to ultimately get this very important message through?
Well, I'll tell you, the very first step was, I'm going to make something that will spotlight these silly things that I can do. Yeah. And that hopefully this actress who I can spar off of with will do, and this hilarious cameo, whoever it may be, and it turned out to be Chris Redd and Becky Drysdale as well, can do. So first was setting out to make something that was filmable and that we could do on a budget, and that would be the kind of film that I grew up on as a kid, the type of, specifically anthology films that were bright and funny. Mm-hmm. Bright, I mean, just kind of almost cartoonish and comical in their campiness, in the horror films that, Stephen King's Cat's Eye, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt, horror anthologies. And I want it, and also just from a business perspective, horror sells. It has a very loyal fan following and demographic. I'm one of the loyal fan followers of the genre. Mm-hmm. So first I wanted to set out to make that kind of rewatchable movie. And then as the idea was sort of stewing, Aziz Ansari was outed for taking advantage of a young woman, and Kevin Spacey, and even Dustin Hoffman was like, I mean, there were all these people who I looked up to, who I really, really loved, and was just sort of like, okay, well, rather than making this the second piece of it, such a serious subject, let's not make this a preachy movie. This is not a Me Too movie. It just kind of mentions it, and hopefully it doesn't come off that way. But the other sort of piece of it was, okay, well, we know what that side of it is, and I'm not a mature enough filmmaker probably to tackle it, nor am I interested, honestly. But what I am interested in is a man's, especially a white male's, reaction to a woman's success, and a fractured man who can't self-soothe in the shadow of a woman's greatness. And I've met many of those men in my life, in my career, especially directing commercials. I've worked with these men. I've directed these men. And also I have absolutely had the feelings in myself when I sort of go like, oh, how is she's in more of a place, and I should be. I was taught. I grew up to. I was told I was going to be at this place by that age, by etc. So I thought, what a great, specific, icky subject and dynamic to explore as a filmmaker, and it's kind of, as serious as it is, it's kind of morbidly comical as a subject, because here you could be a bit of a sad sack. That's not how things necessarily end up, but so I think ultimately, you find actors who can play bold and who, inherently are going to do these comedic sort of things, voices and physical comedy. And the message is the message without getting too ham-fisted and just not playing to the drama too much. I'm still a guy who loves thrillers and Yorgos Lanthimos and Freddy Krueger and all the anthologies I'd mentioned, and love to just have a good time. I love an escapist movie, and that's hopefully what this ends up being.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, every filmmaker would tell you, especially independent filmmakers, would tell you that making films is very expensive, and you do whatever it can to cut costs and stay within budget. Now, there's a very funny line within this film that I love so much. I rewinded it. I was like, wait, did she just look at the screen that way?
Yes, she did.
So the Fanny, played by Miss Cash again, she makes this reference about copyright issues and American Idol, and directly looks at the screen with that. Was that supposed to be that way? And like, what? How did that come about there? And is there a greater story behind that line being dropped in the way it did?
In the way there's a musical number, and I love, again, with a rewatchable movie that has some kind of that extra texture that makes it, what's that extra thing that makes it you want to watch at least one part of a movie again. I thought, well, okay, let's, by this point, especially after they're doing drugs, and especially congruent with the loopiness you get when you're up all night, by that point, we can warrant looking into the camera. So I'm 90% sure I scripted she looks at the camera, or, copyright or whatever. But if we didn't, by that point, and we were all crazy, and it was cold, and it was a blizzard, and, Chris, we only had Chris for two days and change. So we were moving like this. So we're like, So I'm so glad you liked that. So fun.
Oh, that was so amazing. Oh man! Now the other big thing about this film, I think, like, it leaves a lot to the imagination. I really love the chilling sounds. I mean, as a horror fan, I mean, who doesn't? That's probably the biggest element of any film, is having the sounds that makes you look around the room or the theater. You're wondering, are you seeing it on the screen, or is it really happening in your surrounding? But And what's the good balance of this is, because with the comedy that happens, the imagination and the chilling sounds tends to always remind you that it's a horror film. Was it a lot of emphasis put to make sure that the sounds, as you progressively got through the movie, continually just elevated? Like, it just got, things just started changing, like dialogue ended up becoming sounds and so on. But was that ultimately the plan, or is that just how it worked out?
I think the rule was always that the more in flow these storytellers got, and more fun they were having, and the kind of for lack of a better word, the better they were at it. Like Fanny was a little bit better than Fred, who's his sounds and his soundscape was a bit intermittent, but a bit of a raw talent. The more the kind of the horror would manifest and the soundscape would manifest. So what my goal was for the most part realism. So that, we would at least try and make it err on the side of chilling, so that you really did hear the footsteps and you didn't think about it. You didn't overthink about it. There were some moments in the soundscape, or in the sound edit rather, where my sound designer might go a little too far, and I was like, it's just a little too funny. It's a little too much. I don't want them to overthink it. Because if you hear it and you're not thinking too much about how big the sound was, you just go like, oh, I can pretty much imagine that there's a dog there. So anyway, long answer longer. I think I always knew from the get-go that as the film would progress, the more things would manifest to the point where it's literally transportive. With the power of three coming together to improv as a commentary on the creative process, you literally can get transported to another place. So I think it's certainly how it worked out. And the rules are wonky. I mean, we never see another monster hand again, but I was just like, you know what? I just thought it was fun. What can I say? You want to make something. Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, again, I thought the film made you feel like you were a part of the experience. You were in front of the campfire. You were potentially want to inspire to be a writer at some point of this film, because you got so much commentary between the two. You start thinking, well, maybe I can do this. And again, the storytelling thing is just something that we've all experienced, no matter how old, where you're from, ethnicity, anything. Everyone always experienced the idea of who can entertain by telling the best story. So I truly loved how, again, for it to be such an unconventional film, it just felt like an experience more than just watching something. So it was special. Now, because we're coming up on our time, there's 3 more really quick questions.
Take your time. Yeah.
The first one is definitely, what is it that you want the fans to take away from this film? What is the message that you wanted to make sure that is relayed?
I rather than there being kind of a direct message, like if I want to get really heavy, I could say, look, I hope that people can walk away having a discussion, and perhaps a light discussion about how we're brought up as men, and how a lot of women have found themselves in the position that Fanny finds herself in at the end of the film, where they don't know, is he roughhousing? Is he taking it too far? Is he going to take a swing at me? Is he going to make a move? And that's a real thing.
Absolutely.
And so hopefully people talk about that. But also, I want to upend some gender expectations. No man should ever want to push back, and question someone for their intellect. And it doesn't have to end at the gender conversation. Everyone should kind of hopefully learn to build up a little bit of insulation and work off of each other, not take stuff too seriously, A, but B, ultimately, I'd like for people to walk away having had a good time and wanting to pop the movie back on in the background, or to, order pizza. And, you know what I mean? That's the goal, if I could make that kind of a film, because it's the stuff I like to watch,
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. The next question, which is a truly personal question for myself here. What are the chances that we as fans get to see some outtakes or BTS from this?
Oh, man.
I know there's got to be a ton.
There's a ton. There's like maybe a 15-minute take the day Chris got there, where he acted out as a, what did he say? He said, perfect night to get killed, or like, wouldn't want to get killed out there, and I literally just had him act out. He acts it out for like 2 seconds, but we have a 12-minute take. He shoots someone in their car, and makes Zodiac reference, and calls out the cops and doesn't want to get pulled over. But it was like so funny, and the thing goes on forever. Not to mention, when Aya wasn't there, like for Werewolves, for example, my fiance is reading with me because we had her for 9 days. She was doing Fosse Vernon. So I'm just doing werewolf stuff and then stopping. I mean, there's a video where I'm like, trying to get the hand right. I'm puppeteering because I operate it and come out around the corner.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff. And we are working on crossing fingers on an iTunes package. I want to release the single as like its own thing on iTunes and Spotify so people can replay it. But BTS stuff, we're working on hopefully a nice Blu-ray DVD situation.
Awesome. I'm all over that. That wonderful. Is awesome. And of course, the most important question beyond that is what is next? What are you working on? What can you tell us?
I can tell you, I'm actually wearing some swag that Sam Richardson got us. This has to do with my next film, and that's probably all I can say about what this means. But the next movie is called Werewolves Within, and it's not at all a direct adaptation of the game, but it's a Ubisoft independent film, a horror comedy ensemble, whodunnit. Sort of a Knives Out style horror comedy with Sam Richardson in the lead as our hero. And it's an insane cast. We have Glenn Fleshler from Joker and True Detective, Michaela Watkins from Casual and Search Party, Cheyenne Jackson from The Morning Show and Every Damn Thing, Harvey in the Shadows. It goes on and on. It was like a cast of buddies, and we were in a mansion during a blizzard when stuff starts to go down. So I think I kind of have
the Snow Whisperer.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I set out to make this is truly, now that we had the resources, we had several more dollars to do this movie. I set out to make a film. Much like the Amblin films I grew up on, with a touch of social commentary about small-minded townsfolk. I set out essentially. I told these actors, I said, let's make let's make Fargo as if it was an Amblin movie, and that was kind of the dream. A lot of images of arachnophobia in my director's death. On it. So yeah, hopefully I'll know way more soon, and I didn't say too much.
We'll absolutely be looking forward to that. Again, Scare Me is going to be releasing October 1st. It is a Shudder exclusive. If you don't have the Shudder app by now, then I don't know what to say, but you're definitely missing out on amazing content. And Scare Me is just another one starting off October right. Josh, it's just a pleasure to talk to you. This film, again, I liked it for so many different reasons. And more importantly, I liked it because I felt a part of it, because it just was a good time. It was an experience. And I hate to kind of keep calling it a film, but like it was literally an experience for me. And it was really well done. Definitely much success, much love, much power to you going forward. I'm loving what you're doing, and definitely because of the undertones of these, the messages that you're telling, they're super important. I hope that everybody takes a look in the mirror at some point and realize we all can do better and come together as better people. And I love that how media can tell something positive while still having a good time doing it. And you absolutely are a special filmmaker to do such. So thank you so much for this time with you today.
Thank you, Najir. I really, really appreciate you.
Not a problem. And everybody, thank you so much for watching this interview, and absolutely make sure you check this film out. I cannot stress enough. Make sure. And as always, come back in the comments. Let us know what you thought about the film. And we'll see you all very soon for more content and more special interviews very soon. Big Gold Bell.